Welcome back to the channel. What's going on? My name is Kevin Yu. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am so happy to be back. It's been a long time. This whole last year, I've just been focusing on building out a private practice, Soulstice Therapy. Woo! For people that don't know, I have been on a journey to get my license in marriage and family therapy, and I'm finally licensed now in California, Illinois, New York, and I was able to open up a private practice. So I've really just been dedicating my time, all my time, building out this private practice, hiring new therapists, going through the whole journey of getting clients, and just running a business. I think it's a very challenging thing. And something that I've been frequently getting asked is, how do I become a therapist? Surprisingly, I've been getting a lot of questions from friends and friends of friends of how to become a therapist. And I'll do a call probably about once a month answering this question. So I wanted to make a video of the reasons why, the things that I have been saying to them over and over again. And I thought it'd be a very useful resource that I can send them or have this out there if they do research and say how to become a therapist. This pops up on their YouTube page. So without further ado, there's a couple things I wanted to cover, and that is going to be finances is number one, because everyone's got to figure out how much they want to make and how much they can survive off of how much they make, and how lucrative is this as a business financial standpoint. Even though we're taught as therapists not really doing this for the money, but for the love of the game. And it's an important thing to think about is how much we make. School experiences and which schools are specialized in what, and which school to pick for going through your grad program. And then the big question is why? Why do you want to go into therapy? Without further ado, this is kind of the overview of the structure of the video. And of course you can skip around because I definitely do that when I'm watching these type of videos. So let's get into it. First stop. Finances. A big reason why I like to introduce this as number one is when people ask, I was like, first, how much do you want to make? How much do you want to make in your career? And it's hard to say socioeconomic status on where you're currently at, what job are you currently doing, but mental health is a tricky one because there's this notion of this feeling of, not feeling actually, let me take that back. It's a thought in the kind of overlooking payments, overlooking how much we should be making. On top of that already, it is very hush-hush just to talk about salary and finances in general. And then adding that extra layer when you're in the therapy space, it's a lot trickier. And I just wanted to be pretty transparent of the expected income that you'd be getting while you're in grad school, which is zero, how much that's gonna cost, what's your expected pay as an associate, and then what is your expected pay as a licensed professional. So I like to just usually throw that out there and what to expect. And of course, while you're in grad school, you're gonna be looking into programs that cost anywhere between $20,000 for 2 years to $100,000 for 2 years. And that it just really depends on where you go and if it's gonna be in person or online. It's wild to think about that there's programs that are about $20,000 to $30,000 for 2 years. A couple examples like Cal State Long Beach, if you live in California. It's a great resource to have to get your MFT degree if you are trying to do it very financially conscious without taking any loans, or if you need to take loans to take out the further $20,000. I think it's just a very affordable choice to do. So yes, in grad school, you're learning, it's important, you're not making any money. So 2 years, if you're career switching like I did, that's something to think about. And most of my friends that have asked me are career switching. They're in a specific role, maybe in tech, nonprofit, mostly in a corporate business setting, and then switching into the MFT space. You're gonna be giving up 2 years of your life to be in school, not generating any income unless you have passive things already on the side, but most likely it's gonna be zero income. So moving on to as an associate, you're gonna be an associate for at least 2 years minimum. That's just a requirement throughout the United States, kind of almost like your MFT residency or marriage and family therapist residency. It's a little bit more common knowledge as in medical school terms. So after you finish school, you have to wait a minimum of 2 years to collect your hours and sit for your licensing exam. And each state has different requirements. I was able to get my license in Illinois and in California, but just for an example, California has higher relationship requirements than Illinois does. So it took me 3 years to get my hours in California, but it only took me 2 hours to get my hours in Illinois. So as an associate, I'm only really gonna be speaking about private practice because I didn't work in an agency setting or a salaried position, but I can talk a little bit about what my friends were making at the time, but I'm just gonna be speaking from my experience. Usually an associate split in a private practice is about 50%. So the private practice keeps 50% and the associate keeps 50%. And you will be charging anywhere between $100 to $180 as an associate. I was also working in California, so the rates are a little bit different, a little bit higher, but that's just for an example. I would say yearly take home, making between 30 to maybe 60,000 a year as an associate. That's given because in private practice, it takes a while to ramp up. So I was also supplementing my income, working 4 other different jobs, which is wild to think about. And once you start building up your caseload, then you're able to charge a little bit more at the end. So I think that that's a pretty rough estimate between like 30 to 60,000. I definitely was part-time at first just because you're trying to build up your caseload. Private practice, they want to give you clients and high-paying clients, but usually it's about $100, $150 as an associate. That's just my personal experience. When you're licensed, that kind of changes things a little bit more. In private practice, the split changes a little bit. Licensed therapist keeps 60%, the company keeps 40%. At least this is how Soulstice does. Me at Soulstice does it. Yeah, so in summary, as an associate, 50% goes to the practice, 50% goes to the clinician, maybe you move up to 60% to the therapist, and then 40% to the practice. And there might be negotiating room. Maybe when you're a licensed professional, you can charge anywhere between 150 and up, whatever you want to do. Ballpark, as a licensed therapist, you can find a salary job between 80 to maybe like I haven't heard anyone over 130. So 80 to 130, I would say, is the range as a licensed therapist. Associate levels, I've been hearing 60 to 75,000 if you're working in a really nice clinic that's not private practice. But those are rare too. So big range, probably 50 to 130 is the expectancy of a therapist, unless you're in private practice. But most salary things, I don't think I've heard anyone making more than 130 a year in a therapy setting. I hope that makes sense with finances, but that's something I just want to kind of keep in mind, especially when you're thinking about, do I want to do this? I just want definitely to kind of share that information and knowledge with the career changers especially. And also, I mean, even if you're not a career changer and if you're thinking about going into the field right out of college, I definitely want to preface that. So as an associate, you're kind of just hanging in there. It's a tough time, not making that much, trying to get your hours, really susceptible of burnout because you're being worked really hard, trying to get your hours with little pay. So going to my number 2 is school experiences, decision between online versus in-person, since a lot more in-person has switched to online and a lot more therapy now is telehealth. So all my sessions now are telehealth, but I did an in-person program, which I definitely recommend if you have the option to. And the reason why I think in-person was very valuable because it's a very transformative experience that I went through. You get to talk to your peers, they get to know you, you get to know them on such a deep level, and going through all these different therapeutic exercises, how to do therapy in the room together. I think that's a very valuable experience that I think a lot of therapists during COVID and after COVID never really received. And I think there is a lack of skill in that regard. I think it is important. I think you can also develop it after program, you start working in person, but I think the training was really important doing it in person during those teaching years because you're sweating, you're super anxious seeing your first client in person, and you have the support of your supervisor as well as your classmates kind of watching and cheering you on. And that was something that is hard to replicate. It's very hard to replicate that online experience versus the in-person. And of course, online therapy isn't ethically appropriate for all type of therapy. Clients with high risk, personality disorders, mood disorders, anything I would say is severe or high risk, it's not recommended for online therapy. So I think the in-person was a very valuable experience to have. But if you're just trying to get your license as quick as possible and you're like, I just want it for the cheapest option as well as the quickest option and the most convenient, I can see online as a very attractive choice. You're like, I've done the transformation work. I'm not really, I don't find that as important right now in this stage of my life. I just want to do this as quick as possible. Then I would recommend online. It's getting your degree. I would recommend getting it from a COAMFTE accredited program, because it is often a requirement for state licensure as a marriage and family therapist. To be accredited from this program, this is what kind of vets the program, and if it has this stamp, then you're able to sit for the National Board licensing exam, as well as the California licensing exam. So something to keep in mind when you're doing your research into these different programs, look for this COAMFTE accredited program. I don't know why I'm saying it that way, but it's important. Talked a little bit of cost of tuition. I think the transformative program, the two big programs, Northwestern and USC, about $100,000 for those 2 years, unless you get financial aid or grants or anything like that, but just full tuition, looking at that amount. Two of the most expensive programs, but there's definitely value in each of them. I ended up going to Northwestern, cost a lot of money. Still haven't paid off the tuition or made it back since the money that I have obtained. And I think it takes time. I think if you calculate it and see like how long it will take you to pay off your student loans or pay off the tuition itself, could be a very fun exercise if you consider that fun. Yes, definitely something to think about, because I didn't really know that there's a lot cheaper programs out there. I don't know if you're gonna have this type of same experience as Northwestern. It's still getting you the proper education you need that has the accreditation, and it's more of a personal choice. I think on top of that personal choice is something I wanted to talk about, was where you want to live. I think choosing where you're going to live is also very important. Something that I was thinking about was like, okay, my family is from the Chicagoland area, so I chose Northwestern. Once I left Northwestern, I moved to LA. No one really else moved with me. Maybe two other therapists that I knew in my program are here. And of course, I do provide some referrals to them, but all the other referrals are in Illinois. So something that we were kind of told is like, your cohort is going to kind of be your first line of referrals for you. And that's something to really think about as your network as a therapist expands, is your home base. Is like, when you're in this program in this city and you decide to live there, it helps a lot. It definitely helps a lot, because professors are more entrenched within the community. Your cohort's going to be around the city or in the area that you're going to be, and they can help you. Whereas if you do it in the city and then you move completely different place, it's a lot harder. You don't have that advantage of choosing a program in your city. So would I go to USC if I knew I was going to live in LA? I think I would. I think I would have made that choice because of the community that you build, and I think it helps a lot with your therapeutic journey. But also that being said, like, Northwestern was an incredible experience that I can never take back. But that's something I just definitely want to advise, is when you're choosing a program, think about which city and which state you're going to want to live in. Additionally, I had to take extra classes because I moved to California, and you need to take extra classes because California has just more rigorous requirements. So I had to take 8 extra classes from in California because they just didn't meet the requirements to sit for the exam in California. So it's something else to think about. It's like tuition, additional classes, extra exams. Yeah, California has 2 extra exams as well. So, and then moving on to number 3 is your emotional bandwidth. This almost is turning into like obstacles that you think about for being a therapist. But I think this is a really important one, is how much you can give to other people, and how big of a cost is that for you on a personal level. Does that affect your personal relationships with friends, with your family, with your loved ones, or romantic partners? And for me, that was difficult. I think when I was in grad school, you're like learning to see clients. Also on top of that, going through school, navigating these readings, and then on top of dating, keeping your friends, relationships, and then family. After sessions and after school, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I just want to lay on the floor, recover. And I definitely want to introduce that as a very possible thing when you think about healthcare burnout. It can be very overwhelming work. And I think some people get callous to it. Some people compartmentalize it a lot easier than others. For me, it was a lot harder to do so. So I think, just talking to friends and family, just the reasons why you think you want to be a therapist, See just how much that takes a cost on you on an emotional level. Does it energize you? Does it deplete you? And I want you to just be very mindful on that cost. And I think a lot of therapists can relate, and I would love to hear your experiences of like how to help with compartmentalizing after session. For me, my supervisor was like, Kevin, every time on the train back, listen to the same song to kind of differentiate when session is done, and then this new second stage of your nighttime is happening. And that helped a lot. Number 4 is your why. What is the reason you're wanting to switch? It's like my friends told me to do it. I kind of am this person in this role. Like I talk to them all about their relationships. I talk to them about their problems, and I am the one that people come to when that happens. I think that's great. I think that is really great. How much do you want to translate into that as a job? To listen to everyone's issues, listen to everyone's emotional problems. Actually, don't say any of that. That sounds very terrible. Yeah, how much do you want to make of that as you want to do it with everyone, or do you just want to do it with the people that you love and you feel comfortable with? I think there's a lot of things that people can be good at. It's just, do we want to do that as a job? And that is a tricky one. A tricky one to really answer, or tricky one to answer without really going through it and having the experience. So it's something that I thought about too, is like, okay, what if you try like coaching for 3 months, going through a coaching program that doesn't take all that time, or going through a volunteer program where you can volunteer and kind of just sit with people and take it in, because there's a lot of places where you can volunteer, like crisis centers that give you the training to help people in need without going through a whole 2-year licensing program. It's very volunteer based. I think that really lets you know to see like, hey, is this work something I can tolerate or something that I want to do? So that kind of weaves into that emotional bandwidth. Is if we're looking from a solution standpoint, let's try the volunteer for a couple hours a week, and see if that changes my day-to-day mood, my life. Let's go through a coaching program that also gives that one-on-one exposure, if it's online or in person. I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and drop a comment below if you wanted to add any other things that I didn't cover. But I just think, finances, emotional bandwidth, thinking about the school that you want to go to and where, know your why. And yeah, I think that covers everything on my end of what I like to talk to my friends about when they're thinking about this question. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you on the next one.